Hello and welcome back to the Why of It All. Today's episode is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to go into that in a minute, but first I can't help but point out that Gina and I are twinsies right now. Completely unintentional twinsies.
Unintentional.
We're both wearing black leggings and everything, and we did not do this on purpose.
No, she just came out of the bedroom and she's like, "I'm ready," and I'm like, "Oh,
okay.
we're gonna rock the Twinkie thing today."
Matchy.
I mean, we kind of do look like sisters
We do.
anyway.
We do. So. I'm just the curly version. You're the wavy version.
I'm the wavy, and you're
I'm good with it.
You're the angel. I'm the devil.
Yeah. We're going roller skating after this, so we're gonna look like we're gonna look like the Doublemint twins.
We are
rolling around the roller skating.
And don't worry, we will capture the roller skating.
Oh yes, it's gonna be glorious.
Yeah, we will capture it.
So yes, we decided to go roller skating after this because today's going to be a bit of a heavier episode, and we thought that was going to be the perfect, talking about simple pleasures from last week's episode. It was going to be the perfect simple pleasure to lighten the mood.
You have the best ideas. You do.
Well, you have some pretty damn good ideas yourself, my love.
But today, I needed roller skating after this.
So what we're going to be talking about today is narcissistic abuse. It's something that affects so many people, but it lives in the shadows. And we're going to be talking about the journey of breaking free from narcissistic abuse. We want to acknowledge right up front that this conversation might bring up some big feelings for you. If you've personally experienced toxic or abusive relationships, please give yourself permission to pause, to take a breath, come back later if you need to. We understand that this is going to be heavy material. If you haven't been through it yourself, this episode is still for you, though. Maybe you're close to someone who has experienced narcissistic abuse. Maybe you're trying to better understand the signs, or maybe you're simply curious about how these patterns affect the human mind and heart. And later on, after we talk about Gina's experience, we are going to go through the science and the statistics about this. So stay tuned for all of that. Wherever you're coming from, you belong here in this conversation. Our hope is to shine the light where there's been darkness, to help unpack the patterns of narcissism, the grip of trauma bonding, and most importantly, the courage it takes to reclaim freedom and rebuild a sense of self. You're not alone in this, whether as a survivor, a supporter, or a learner. Healing is possible, and today Gina is bravely sharing her story, not just the pain, but the breakthroughs and the lessons that she's carried forward. We'll also weave in research and practical tools because knowledge is, of course, one of the first steps to breaking free. So let's begin by grounding this conversation with some definitions. What narcissism is, what narcissistic personality disorder means, and how these patterns show up in abusive dynamics. So I'm going to read through some of this. Gina and I spent a lot of time doing show prep yesterday because we wanted this to be profound and informative as well. Narcissism is generally defined as a pattern of self-centered thinking and behavior, characterized by an excessive focus on oneself, a strong need for admiration, and a lack of empathy for others. And, you know, have you noticed how in the past, what would you say, 5 years, maybe up to 10 years, but certainly in the last 5 years or so, everybody's talking about narcissism. It was like, it wasn't a thing that people recognized and talked about up until relatively recently. And it gets thrown around a lot, doesn't it?
It does. It gets thrown around a lot. And so we take that very seriously because we're not diagnosing anybody on the show. But now that I've experienced a relationship with what I believe to be a narcissist, people can't throw it haphazardly and loosely. And, you know, it's just one of those buzzwords now, right? Like if somebody's not agreeing with you, they're a narcissist, or somebody's selfish, they're a narcissist. That is not the deal at all when you're actually dealing with somebody with this type of a personality disorder.
Right. I agree. So that's kind of why we wanted to go into the nitty gritty and define this stuff too, is so that people kind of resist the urge to just throw it around and make themselves feel better.
And actually, I was describing this relationship to somebody in a conversation. It was one of my friends that said, "Honey, you know he's a narcissist, right?" Like somebody had to tell me, "Hey, all these things that you're telling me, these line up with this personality disorder."
So Overly self-absorbed, arrogant, or attention-seeking is how it gets thrown around, but there is an actual clinical diagnosis. In psychology, narcissism can refer to a personality trait or a spectrum, and that's important to recognize. There can be low-level narcissists, and then there can be like, holy crap, narcissists.
And there can be covert narcissists, which I feel like what I was really dealing with, a covert narcissist.
Interesting.
So it's a whole, it's a whole thing.
At its extreme, that was hard to say, it can manifest as narcissistic personality disorder, which is a diagnosable condition characterized by a pervasive pattern of grandiosity in fantasy or behavior, constant need for admiration, lack of empathy for others, difficulty handling criticism, and exploitative or manipulative relationships. Narcissistic abuse is not just about name calling or criticism. It often involves subtle, long-term patterns of emotional manipulation that erode the victim's sense of self. That's huge.
Huge.
Right. And I know we're going to get well into that.
Oh, yes.
Right. So now that we've laid the foundation for what narcissism and narcissistic personality disorder actually are, we want to bring this out of theory and into real life. So, Gina, you have lived through this firsthand. And before we dig into your story, I just want to let everybody know that the fact that we are here today having this conversation is a really big deal. This is something Gina has been working through and actively healing within herself for a very long time. And we've been doing this show for 8 months now. And the whole time I'm checking in with her like, are you ready to talk about it yet? Are you ready to talk about it yet? Are you ready to talk about it? She's like, no.
No.
Nope.
I wasn't.
And it was, what was it, last week? I think it was last week. All of a sudden, out of the blue, you're like, I think I'm ready to talk about it. And it was like, I threw a little mini party.
You did.
Because that's so huge. The fact that you are ready to talk about it is so indicative of how far you have come in your healing journey. And I'm so excited for you. It just makes me so proud of you.
Yes.
And this, again, it's something that a lot of people deal with. And for people who are experiencing narcissistic abuse, maybe on the lower end of the scale, we're hoping this is going to be informative for you because you may not even realize that's what you're dealing with.
Yeah. And I want to say, too, that this is also requiring me to be extremely, extremely vulnerable. And maybe that's why I haven't been ready to talk about it in depth, because I just haven't. I mean, maybe I've needed to be on air and been recording for as long as we have to finally feel. And again, through my healing journey, because this goes back to one of the reasons we started the podcast, right? And so it is a big deal. So thank you for acknowledging that. Really. Yeah. Thank you.
So besides just like getting used to doing this, and, you know, we tend to be very vulnerable and authentic on this show anyway. So like, is there anything else that made you finally feel ready to share this part of your story?
I think, honestly, I know you hear all this, this typical time heals all wounds. For me, time is what I've needed to pass to feel like I'm ready to talk about it. I just feel like, you know, when you're too close to the situation, or you need more time to process the emotions and the feelings that come along, I feel like I'm ready now because enough time is passing. Really, that's all it boils down to. It's just time.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, time.
Can you share what life was like for you before the relationship started? Like, how were you in relationships beforehand? What was your life like?
You know, actually, I was very, very single before meeting this person. It was right after COVID. You know, everybody was on lockdown. I mean, I wasn't dating. I was just keeping my head above water, wondering when we were going to be able to come out of quarantine. So I was, you know, I was enjoying my life and my friends. I wasn't really focused on dating at all. And so everything was good. And then I got, by the recommendation of a friend, got on a dating app, and that's how I met this person. And so life was, you know, when you say relationships, when I think back to all of my relationships, I had some good ones. I've had some good ones, but I'd say all of them were typically, for the most part, healthy. I mean, yes, you're going to deal with some people who have anger problems or cheaters or things like that. I've dealt with all of that. But nothing has been as traumatizing as this relationship. Even my divorce. I mean, I went through a divorce with a child, 12 years ago? And that wasn't even as traumatizing as this
Yeah.
abusive relationship was.
Well,
So,
I witnessed firsthand what it did to you. So
you did. You were there
I was there.
most of the way.
Yep.
Yeah.
What drew you to him in the first place?
I talk about this a lot. All of my friends that hope you're listening to this episode, but all my friends that know me, my close inner circle, know that I was in a very vulnerable spot when I met this person. My father was very sick and he was going through treatments to try to save his life. And so I feel like I was already vulnerable because I was dealing with those emotions. I'm also an empath. I don't know if there's any scientific study on this, but I've been told narcissists are attracted to empaths just because we have a very forgiving kind of disposition, hopeful, the person's going to do better, just that kind of
Tendency to look for the best in others.
always. That's kind of me to a fault. You know, it didn't really serve me in this situation. And so I just, he was also very charming. He was very charming. He was very charismatic. He was funny. He would bring me flowers and buy me little gifts and just all the things that are exciting at the beginning of a relationship. I think that's what drew me to him. And then also the fact that I was dealing with this really traumatic passing of my father. I think it created a perfect storm for me being vulnerable to this situation and to this relationship. Yeah. And we're going to get into this later, but I think in that moment when my father passed, I got trauma bonded to this person. And we'll go into a little bit.
We're going to talk about that.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that.
So, Gina, when did you first notice that something felt off in this relationship?
I would say in the first couple of months.
Oh, wow. Was that soon?
Very soon.
I didn't know that.
In the first couple of months. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. There were signs.
Oh.
There were red flags. It was subtle at first. He'd come over and I'd maybe had just gotten off work and had a full face of makeup on, or maybe I was getting ready for a date or something. He was picking me up and he would say something about my makeup. He'd be like, "Oh, you look like you have war paint on your face. You don't need so much makeup. You're beautiful." He would turn it and flip it to where it would like an underhanded
backhanded compliment.
Yes. And so he would start doing that. He'd maybe come over on a Saturday morning, and for my type of work, I have to dress up every day. So on the weekends, I want to be chill. I want to be in sweats or whatever. And he would comment that I look like a homeless person, like I'm dressed like a homeless, but at the same time, make it funny, or like, "Oh, you need to be wearing something that's more flattering to your body. You're covering up your beautiful body." Just, it was subtle at first. And then maybe the first month or maybe the second month, he told me he loved me. Weirdly, as leaving my house, he just said, "I love you." And I was like, oh, it just kind of
Like out of nowhere.
out of nowhere.
Out of context.
So, yeah. So I felt like that was a little bit, oh, okay. And,
Like it didn't make it a special moment.
no, not at all. He was like leaving my house and he was like, "I love you." And I was like, oh, okay. And so, and I also felt like that was a little too soon to be professing love bombing, things like that. So,
What was your reaction to that?
I didn't say anything. I just like, oh. And then I don't know if I like talked to him later and I'm like, "Do we need to address that you said you loved me?" And he just, "Oh, I slipped. I didn't mean to say it." So he kind of blew it off. And then I didn't want to talk about it again. And then maybe a few weeks later we were FaceTime and he said it again, "I love you." And I was like, it also didn't feel
genuine.
I get, yes.
Like when you hang up the phone after telling a telemarketer that you're not interested and you're like, "Love you."
Love you,
It's
bye.
just like, oops.
It was just kind of, and then both times he said that he slipped. And so it's like, okay. But if somebody really loves you, they're going to say, "Oh, I really mean that. Like, I really love you." So it was a weird kind of dynamic in the beginning. And then also I felt something was off too, because he always be on the phone with other women and he would always say they're friends. And a lot of them, I think they were just platonic friends, but I'd never been with a man who had so many platonic girlfriends. And so he'd be coming into my house and he'd still be on the phone with one and chatting it up. And every time I would come around, like he'd be finishing up a phone call with one of his girlfriends. And I just thought that was weird. Like it didn't feel right in my soul. He didn't have any boundaries with his phone. He was super addicted to his phone. And I found that to be very crass, didn't align with me at all. It just felt, it felt like I was always competing for his time with this electronic device. It was very strange. I mean, it ended up being one of the major points of contempt all throughout the relationship. Like, you're addicted to your phone, get off of your phone. You're addicted to your
and that's not necessarily a characteristic of a narcissist.
No.
I mean, there's a bunch of us that are addicted to our phones out here.
Absolutely.
But I can see how, in terms of setting the stage for all the things that, after it sounds like just a few months, things started going in the wrong direction.
Just basically what I noticed was lack of boundaries with these other friends, with the girlfriends, lack of boundaries with this, just lack of boundaries in general. So that,
so even when you express that this is a problem for me, he like didn't care, didn't try to change it, didn't attempt to do anything about it.
No, he would turn it back and make me feel stupid, or make me feel like, you're being too jealous, or you're being silly.
There it is.
That's just my friend. She's my boo. And I'm like, you're boo, but I'm supposed to be your, so it was just these little, when I look back and I think about it, it was very manipulative.
Because it's like, okay, so the truth is that you've been cheated on in the past. So that was your own triggers.
It was.
And maybe it was just purely platonic, but the fact that you express that this is something that's causing a problem for me.
Correct.
And he, instead of simply finishing the phone call in the driveway before he walks through the door, and just making a very minor adaptation, he gaslit you.
Yes.
And that's where the narcissism comes in.
That's where the narcissism comes in. So another example, good example, I would always go to bed at a decent time. We had different time. He was self-employed. I had to be at an 8 to 5 job. So I would go to bed at 10 o'clock. Well, he would always stay up. And then I would find out that he'd be on the phone with his girlfriends until like the wee hours of the morning. And I told him, I'm like, hey, I don't like that. I really want to be the last girl that you talk to before you go to bed. I didn't feel like that was asking too much. And then he would flip it and he would be like, well, again, it's the gaslighting. It was, well, what do you expect me to do for 3 hours while you're already in bed? Well, why don't you stay up then? You stay up and talk to me, and you go to bed, you go to work sleep deprived. Why don't you do that? That will clear it all up. Then I won't talk to this girlfriend of mine. If you just stay up and tend to me, then everything will be fine. And so, but he's not thinking about what's best for my day for the next day. Really, he's not care. He doesn't care that I'm going to be exhausted the next day. And it was always this flipping around of every scenario that I would come to complain about. So that's how things escalated a lot more.
Well, and something that I've learned over time with relationships is that very often what it gets labeled as a complaint or a nag, especially when it comes from women. Women are known for this. What it actually is at the root is a bid for connection.
Yes.
And when our bids for connection go repeatedly unacknowledged, deprioritized, devalued, over time their emotion gets attached to it. So now instead of just being like, hey, can you do this thing for me? I would feel better about it if you would do this instead. And they go, okay, we make a small change.
Yeah.
And then the thing is not a thing anymore.
Right.
Instead, we feel our feelings don't matter, and that resentment builds up over time.
Yes.
And then every bid for connection has emotion and frustration attached to it. And then it becomes nagging.
Yeah. And then it's almost a sense that you start to feel guilty for asking for what you need because you're always met with contempt. You're always met with a rebuttal. You're always met with turning it around. So that's where that lack of empathy comes with this type of personality, because they can't really put themselves in your position. They don't know how, they don't possess the actual skills innately in them to be able to empathize and go, oh man, that does. Because I would always try to go, look, see how would you feel if I stayed on the phone with guys all day and all night? And he could never make that that connection, I guess.
Also, I didn't mean to exclude the men in that. Certainly there are men out there who have made attempts at bids for connection that their women have been unwilling to be wrong and to make adjustments about. So
there's
certainly
lots of narcissistic women too. I mean, it's not gender specific for sure.
So this was a cycle that you got stuck in. Can you describe what it felt like being stuck in that cycle?
Oh man, it's so hard to put into words because it was a lot of breaking up and making up. It was a lot of, I can't take this anymore. I've had enough. I need to break free. My nervous system was constantly in fight or flight, constantly dysregulated, complete anxiety. And so it felt like um exhilarating and exhausting all at the same time. If that makes sense. It was like he would bring me up to the highest of highs and we would have this intensity, which we'll go into later, which you mistake for love.
That's like love bombing.
It's love bombing. Yes, it's all that intensity. But you're met with that extreme happiness and then eager for that connection, but then you get disappointed. So it was always this cycle of like coming up, 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 high, 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 and then being brought down. And so it was a vicious, and then also
That's exhausting.
it's exhausting. And then also during these makeups and breakups, it would be towards the end, it'd be very embarrassing. So to divulge that I was talking to this person again, to my family, to my friends, to my close inner circle. So I was in the cycle feeling always constantly shameful, felt embarrassed, always felt like, why can't I get my shit together? Why can't I stop? Why can't I stop? And so there was a lot of shame, I guess, for me that was associated with that cycle.
So earlier you mentioned trauma bond that related to this relationship coming up in your life right at the time when you lost your father. What role do you think that trauma bond played in keeping you tied to the relationship?
Well, the more that I researched it and the more that I learned about a trauma bond, it really is a chemical reaction. It's almost indicative of like somebody that's addicted. So instead of being addicted to a drug, like somebody that's high on heroin or high on gambling or high on porn, the dopamine hit that I would get from the relationship, the chemical reaction, my brain was literally having a chemical imbalance being with this person. And it got stuck by the repeated back and forth and breakup and makeup. And so it's such a strong feeling that your brain can't really reconcile what's going on. Logically, I knew it was hurting me. Logically, the prefrontal cortex was firing like, okay, this is not right. This doesn't feel good, but I could not leave. And so that was the part that was so difficult.
And I remember we would have these conversations, like you would have broken up with him and some number of weeks or months in some cases would go by and you hadn't talked to him and you'd be getting happier and happier. You've been doing great. And then we'd talk on the phone. You'd be like, well, got back together with.
Yeah, because he was hoovering, and we'll get into that too. Another real common trait for a narcissist is they hoover. They start trying to get you back into their tendrils. If you're blocked, send the emails or get a friend to reach out or mail you a letter. I mean, he mailed me a 20-page letter at one point because he was blocked from my phone, blocked from everything. And so the hoovering can be really hard to deal with for somebody like me. But I wanted to give this definition of trauma bonding because if you've never heard of it before, you're like, what is that? Just like we brought up the hedonic treadmill that we'd never heard of. But this I really have gotten into, just having to do the healing on myself and figure out why I stayed for as long as I did and why I kept going back when I knew it was detrimental to my health, to my well-being, to my sense of self. I lost all of that for a long time. So a trauma bond is a powerful emotional attachment that develops between an abuser and the person they abuse. It's created through a cycle of intermittent reinforcement, periods of abuse or mistreatment, followed by moments of affection, kindness, or promises to change. This push and pull creates confusion and a strong addictive attachment, making it very difficult to leave the relationship even when it's harmful. So that's exactly what I experienced. This was interesting too, the signs that you're trauma bonded. And I kind of hit all of these really. So you might be trauma bonded if you notice you feel addicted to them, like you crave their attention or approval, even after they hurt you. Like you look to him. I looked to him for validation because I had lost my sense of self because I was so beat down by the verbal abuse. You justify or minimize their behavior. So you explain away their abuse, convincing yourself it's not that bad. Like it's not that bad. You minimize. You keep going back. Even after leaving or being mistreated, you feel pulled to return. And again, this is all chemically what's going on in the brain. You believe their promises, holding on tightly when they say they'll change despite repeated patterns. You confuse abuse with love. You mistaken intensity, drama, or control for deep passion. You feel responsible for their moods, constantly trying to keep them calm or happy to avoid conflict. And I resonate with that a lot because there would be a fight, we would get in, and then I would have to make a decision. Okay, am I going to let this ruin the rest of the night, or am I just going to call it and just accept it and move on? And every time that would happen, I would lose more myself because I wasn't ever standing up for what I knew was right. You fear leaving, believing you can't survive without them or that you'll never find anyone else. And 8, you feel guilty when you set boundaries, prioritizing their needs and dismissing your own, which again goes to losing that sense of self through this process.
Was there any part of you too, I didn't see this mentioned in there, but it just popped in my head. Was there any part of you that did you find yourself fawning and people pleasing to avoid triggering him?
Yes.
Like, on the one hand, it's like you're addicted to him, but he's the abuser, right? So like, did you find yourself, what I've called in the past, bending, folding, stapling, and mutilating yourself out of who you are in order to avoid his wrath?
Yes.
Or avoid triggering him, or,
I would a lot of times just submit to the abuse. He would make a comment or call me a bad name or say something profane or say something extremely disrespectful. And sure, it would hurt, but after time, it's like I would just get used to it. It was just the way of how I knew things were going to be being with this person. And so I would constantly just be submissive.
Yeah. And I just have to say, again, we've known each other 25 years. And on the one hand, I felt while you were going through all of this, it was important to me to just be there for you. Like, I didn't need to add more to your plate. I know you have other friends in your life that are the ones that are really be like, Gina, what the F are you doing?
Yeah, stop that.
You've got friends that are good for that. And it was important to me to just be there for you.
Yeah.
Just be there for you. But I watched you devolve from the Gina that I had known for so long into this other version of you that I was like, I don't even know who you are. I mean, when we were talking, it was almost like you would pop out of it for a little bit and I would see little glimpses here and there, but you were just so different. And it feels so wonderful. And I'm so proud of you that you have found yourself again, that you're on the other side of it. And we're going to talk about how you got there in a little bit.
Wild.
But I'm just in this moment, I'm remembering how not you were.
Yes. And you're not the only friend that has said that.
Yeah.
And so when I was in the thick of it too, I had another girlfriend that knows me very, very, very well. And that said, this is not you.
Yeah.
This is not you to put up with this shit. This is not you to tolerate this mistreatment. This is not you. Like, what? And, at that time I didn't have a sense of self. My self-esteem had been knocked down to nothing.
Yeah.
And I want to explain too what also set me up for staying as long as I did in something like this. And this can happen to anybody. And so I want to take the shame out of it because it doesn't mean that you're a weak person. It doesn't mean that you don't have boundaries. I was sexually abused at 13. And I feel like that set the stage too, because I've always struggled with feelings of not being appreciated, not feeling worthy of true love, I've had to really work on that all of my life. And what he did for me is he brought up all those,
He brought the worst version of that out.
triggers of me feeling like a piece of trash at 13. All that popped up in this relationship.
And he took advantage of it.
Yes. And I want to mention something else because I said submissive. And I want to also say that there is a thing called reactive abuse. And it's where a person can only deal with so much abuse, right? Till they flip. So there were lots of times in the relationships where I flipped my lid, like I flipped my shit. I didn't even recognize who that person was that was yelling and screaming at the top of my lungs and the veins popping out of my neck. And do you know what I'm saying? Like that's, so I say submissive. It's just that there were times where I had to decide, is this going to turn into something where I'm yelling, screaming, one of those things? Am I going to have that reactive, or am I just going to stay quiet and just
Well,
I don't know.
Okay, so I don't know if you've ever seen, there's charts that you can look up if you do Google image search for the vibrational scale or the vibrational ladder. There's charts where you can see what the frequency of various emotions are. And shame is almost at the very, very bottom. Shame and guilt way at the bottom, as in other words, the lowest frequency. Anger is higher in frequency than shame and guilt.
Oh.
So it almost makes me wonder if those moments of anger and rage that would come out was sort of like your inner being, your soul, like attempting in a moment to stand up for yourself, attempting in a moment to climb a little bit higher and be like, I know I don't deserve this.
Yeah.
And in those moments, anger doesn't feel good, but it's a much more empowered state of being than shame.
Yeah. And then, but then when you're with an abuser, then it's all your fault because you reacted. And so then it turns into, when you're with a narcissistic personality, then it turns into, oh my God, look how dramatic you are. You're just as horrible. You're, you know, you're the one with anger problems. And
Gaslighting on overdrive.
Yes. So,
girl, we're 33 minutes in and that's the first time you've gotten a little emotional. Well, I'm impressed. I thought there was going to be a lot more of it than that.
I've got my hanky. We're not done yet, but okay.
All right.
Thank you for acknowledging that.
That was great. I'm like, I can't believe she hasn't cried yet.
Well, because I told her, I'm like, I could be a blubbering idiot today. Melanie knows me. Like, she knows. And she's
boo-hoo
like,
it out, girl.
Like, just
if there's any episode for you to boo-hoo it out, this is the episode.
All right, let's cry. Come on.
Okay. Do it. I dare you. Okay.
Hey everybody, it's Melanie from The Why of It All. You guys already know Gina and I are passionate about healing mind, spirit, and body. And that's why we're proud to be sponsored by a brand whose passion for wellness runs as deep as ours, Tulip Blooms. Tulip Blooms is a family-owned American small business that handcrafts a variety of small batch premium skincare products, such as their original flagship product, Rainfall. Rainfall is a luxurious, lightweight face and body lotion made with soothing aloe vera and a powerhouse blend of cold-pressed botanical oils like jojoba, rosehip, and evening primrose. Rainfall is my go-to daily body lotion. I love that it's made with only the highest quality of pure, clean, natural ingredients. There's no synthetics at all, and it absorbs quickly, delivering lasting hydration without any greasiness. There are many scents to choose from, even unscented, but my favorite is rose geranium. Rainfall is gentle enough for the face, nourishing enough for the body, and the perfect daily go-to, especially after sun exposure when your skin craves extra care. Visit tulipblooms.shop and use our exclusive promo code HEAL, that's HEAL, at checkout for 10% off your order.
Okay, so we want to go into a little bit the prevalence and statistics on narcissistic abuse, okay? Because I think this is important for people to wrap their brain around. We talked about how there is a spectrum, right? You've got like personality level narcissism over here, where it's a thing that shows up from time to time, relatively low level. And then you've got narcissistic personality disorder on the intense end of the spectrum. That is a diagnosable condition, right? So NPD affects about 1% of the population. It's not as common as people think. 1%. Though narcissistic traits appear in far many more other people, right? Some studies suggest that 50 to 75% of diagnosed narcissists are male, though women can also be narcissistic abusers. I will tell you, I have never experienced narcissistic abuse. Thank God.
be grateful.
Be grateful. But it is in my family. My grandmother on my mother's side was a severe, probably, you know, this was a long time ago, right? So I'm sure she was never diagnosed, but if she had ever gone to see somebody, she probably would have been diagnosed. Yeah. It was really bad. And so I have heard from my mother what she went through, which sounds very, very similar to what you went
Because it's
through.
not just in intimate partners, it's with parents, you know, with friends, things like that, bosses, like this cycle or this dynamic.
Right. So listen, this was a very interesting fact that we found. Survivors often endure an average of 7 attempts to leave before finally breaking free, similar to domestic violence statistics.
Well, and I want to let people understand, this is something that I've talked to a good friend of mine that's been in this type of relationship, abusive relationship, but like people think that because I didn't have bruises, because I didn't, have a black eye or a broken jaw, that it really wasn't abuse. And the truth is that those mental scars, they last way longer than the bruises. The bruises will heal. And and I'm not trying to minimize physical abuse at all.
The physical abuse is going to have emotional abuse attached to it, of course. But that's not to diminish pure emotional abuse, because it is absolutely every bit as devastating.
Correct. And that's why it took me so long to like, have I really been abused? But like, yes, like this is a real thing. And just because, and the 7 attempts to leave, it took me longer. It took me more attempts than that. And so that is a very, very true statistic.
Can I ask, do you have a ballpark idea of how many attempts it did take you?
Oh, I mean, at least a dozen.
Wow.
At least a dozen.
You're pushing the needle on the statistics there.
For going back and forth.
God bless you.
Yes.
So here are some of the tactics of narcissistic abusers. And I'm pretty sure Gina mentioned every one of these. Love bombing, over-the-top affection early on to create fast attachment. Gaslighting, making the victim doubt their reality, memory, or feelings. Devaluation. Once hooked, the abuser criticizes, withdraws, or manipulates. And you for sure went through a bunch of that.
Absolutely.
Here's the hoovering that you talked about.
Hoovering.
Attempts to suck the victim back in with apologies or promises after they leave. That happened again and again and again.
A dozen times, if not more.
And then control through isolation, cutting the victim off from family and friends. Did you experience any of that?
No, I don't think I experienced it so much with him wanting to isolate me, but I feel like I isolated myself in a way, because I think I had so much shame around the relationship and of going back and forth. And, I think that I probably, in some ways, don't you feel looking back that
you disappeared for a little while.
Yeah. And so I think I wouldn't say he did that. I did that to myself through the abuse.
So these are the impacts on the victim. There's the psychological impacts, PTSD or CPTSD, which is complex post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, depression, and learned helplessness. The physical effects are the chronic stress leading to insomnia, autoimmune diseases, digestive problems, headaches, this walking on eggshells issue, and chronic tension in the body.
Yep.
Do any of those ring any bells for you?
I'm just going to say, my eczema
That's autoimmune.
got crazy around the time my father got sick and around the time of this trauma bonding. So this was back in 22, late 21. And my eczema, I hadn't had it in years, and it just blew up. So yes, I did experience the physical for sure.
Yeah.
And the insomnia too.
Yeah. And then the last one there is identity erosion, which of course you've talked about. Many survivors describe feelings like they lost themselves or became a shell of who they once were. And obviously we just talked about that. And that was pretty profound with you.
Yeah. That's very painful.
Yeah. So why people stay or struggle to leave is the trauma bonding that we talked about. A powerful mix of intermittent reward and punishment creates an addictive cycle. Fear of retaliation or financial dependence. I don't know that did you experience any of that?
No, I wouldn't. No, I did not deal with that.
Yeah. And then there's the manipulation. Victims are made to feel guilty, responsible, or too weak to survive on their own. Yeah.
For sure.
So Gina, what was the turning point that finally gave you the strength to walk away for the last time?
Okay. I'm going to say something first, but I do want to go back to what made me walk away the last time. But because I went back so many times, looking back, what I can notice is that the refractory periods of breaking up and making up got shorter and shorter. So I would get back. Okay.
I remember that.
Do you remember that? So I would get back, and then I would maybe be back for a couple of months and things would be good. Everything would be great. And we'd be doing this and that. And then, people can only keep their mask on for so long, and then the mask would start to come off. And so maybe the first few times it was like I could stay for a couple of months. And then as the relationship progressed and the makeups and breakups progressed, the refractory period got shorter and shorter. So maybe next time I just stayed for a month. And then I'd be gone for a few weeks, and then he would hoover. And then I'd get back, and then maybe I'd stay for 3 weeks. With time, and it's like those last few times, I literally could only stay for like 48 hours. It would literally be like a connection, this intensity, and then I would realize, oh my God, what am I doing? And so the refractory period got less and less. Also, too, the verbal assaults were getting worse. The intensity of the fights were escalating to the point where I was like, like this is not good. You know, everything was getting more, getting worse, just intensified. Also, too, during that last year of the relationship, he wanted to go to couples counseling. So I agreed to it. And one of the turning points for me was when we were on a Zoom call with a therapist. It was like our second visit. And the therapist, he was saying some stuff. I don't remember what he was talking about, but she basically told me in front of him, Gina, you realize what he's doing right now? He's actually verbally abusing you and he's manipulating you right now. And this is
with him being on the phone.
With him being on the phone. So the three of us, and like, we're talking to her and she's like, she just basically was like, hey, you are verbally abusing her right now. You are verbally assaulting her. And what you're saying is very manipulative. And I think y'all need to take a break. This is the therapist saying you need to take a break. So, so that was a big turning point. And then anybody that's listening that has gone through this, you've got that one thing that happened that finally broke your spirit, helped you detach completely. You know, there were
pissed you off enough to make it stop.
Yes, pissed me off enough. There were so many reasons before this happened for me to leave completely, but it wasn't until we were in this argument. I don't remember, we were fighting or something, of course, yelling match, whatever. I was probably trying to tell him how I felt, which was coming on deaf ears. And he said, you know what, Gina, you're damaged. And he said it in such a way. I'd never had anybody call me damaged. I mean, I've had somebody call me a bitch or like whatever, or you piece of shit. Like, but for some reason, when he called me damaged and he said it in a very ugly,
like condescending,
evil-spirited way, for some reason, my mind went back to that little girl that was sexually abused, that wasn't my choice. That wasn't my choice to be sexually abused. It wasn't my choice to be assaulted. And the fact that this person that's supposed to love me was using my deepest wound to re-traumatize me all over again and call me damaged. And it was at that moment where it's just, I had this like, somebody that loves me is never going to use my past trauma against me. And so,
moment of clarity.
It was the moment. And again, guys, there were so many moments before that I don't, there even
but sometimes it has to be the right thing. Sometimes it's just, yeah, you needed to hear exactly what you needed to hear, and it sucks you had to hear it.
Yeah. But yes. And again, never had anybody ever talk to me like that before. So I think that is what finally gave me the strength to stay away for good. Yeah.
Which I know must have been scary. I mean, you were still in the thick of this emotional crisis and chaos. So like, how did you overcome the fear of leaving for good?
You know what? I was scared, but I did it anyway. I did it through the fear. Every day was scary, but you know, what is it? Like, fake it till you make it. Like, I just knew that I wanted more for my life. I knew that I deserved a love that was soft and gentle and a soft place for me to land. And I know that kind of love exists. And this was not love. This was not love. Yeah. And so I knew that it was going to be scary. I knew that it was going to be hard, and I just had to do it anyway.
I'm remembering that around that time, I picked up on a change in your language when we would talk. So prior to when you finally left for good, when we would talk, and I would be like, Gina, you don't deserve this. Like, Gina, you're way too good for this guy. Like, you don't deserve this. You'd be like, yeah, I know. But it was sort of like, I know, but I doubt it.
Yeah.
Right around this time is when you started being the one saying to me, I don't deserve this. Yep. I'm done being ashamed. I'm done with all of this. Like, you're you started sounding more empowered, and you started knowing for yourself that he crossed a line and I'm not putting up with this shit anymore.
Yeah. I agree with that. I think over time it built walls against him. All of the abuse I was able to detach emotionally and start to realize that shell of a person, I'm still in there. And if I can just get her out and soothe her and love on her and give her the love that I've been spewing out, to this other person, or what I thought was love, this attention, this affection, this energy, and I could pull it back on myself. I mean, that was one of the most therapeutic things that I did.
Yeah, we talked a lot about inner child work.
Yes.
Around that time.
Yes, we did.
All right, so take me back to those first few weeks after you left, of what turned out to in fact be the last time.
Yes,
right?
yes. So what is super important for people to know, and what I fought for so long, was the no contact rule. So when you're dealing with this type of a personality, no contact is so hard, but it's so necessary. Get happy with the block button. Get happy with the
everywhere.
Block
everywhere.
He's been off of my social media for years, and my phone, and no contact is really necessary to separate yourself and give yourself enough of a buffer to separate yourself so that you can start thinking clearly again. I wasn't thinking clearly until that no contact was put into place. And so the craving for that dopamine hit in those first few weeks is so hard, because it's shot with feelings of loneliness when you feel so alone in the trauma and in the healing. But another thing that I realized too, in being alone after this dissolution of this relationship, was I actually felt more alone with him.
But that didn't come till hindsight.
That didn't come until hindsight. But yes, but realizing though later on that I was more lonely in the relationship than I was by myself, completely single. But that loss of sense of self and that low self-esteem those first few weeks is what's really hard, because you're trying to come back to who you are.
So yesterday, Gina and I were talking about what narcissistic abuse does to the brain, which of course, we're really into that kind of nerdy stuff. Like not just the emotional toll, but the way it shapes how you think, how you see yourself, even how your brain seems to work day to day. So we did a little bit more research on the subject. We wanted to share that here. Chronic gaslighting and emotional manipulation actually shrinks the hippocampus, which is the part of the brain responsible for memory and learning. The amygdala, which we know is the fear center, right? It becomes overactive, leaving survivors in a constant state of hypervigilance, anxiety, and fight or flight reactivity. Trauma bond releases dopamine and oxytocin, creating an addictive loop that makes leaving the abuser feel neurologically similar to withdrawal from drugs.
Straight up.
Like that paints a picture, doesn't it?
Straight up.
Wow.
I don't know how else to explain it, that it felt like that cycle was a drug for me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Long-term abuse raises cortisol levels, of course, which can damage neurons and impair rational decision-making, making it harder to think clearly or plan an escape. Survivors often develop the CPTSD, which is complex post-traumatic stress disorder, leading to changes in brain connectivity, especially in areas regulating trust, self-perception, and emotional regulation. And then, of course, we know, we've talked about on this show, how neuroplasticity works both ways. While abuse rewires the brain for survival, healing practices such as therapy, safety, mindfulness, and all of the other different healing tools that we've talked about on this show many times can rewire it again for peace and self-trust. And one of the things that Gina mentioned to me, I think yesterday when we were talking and recently in other conversations, is how even just having this show and talking about what we talk about on a regular basis has been healing. And I can say the same thing for me in my own healing journey.
Right.
Just sort of immersing ourselves in the healing journey and picking up all of these tools and then talking about, the simple pleasures, which was our episode last week, like just the simple pleasures, and focusing on these things and talking about it is healing in and of itself.
And I think what was scary for me going through this is when I started learning more about narcissistic abuse and trauma bonding, when I started learning about all these things and what it does to the brain chemically and physiologically, it scared me. Like I was like, shit, I'm going to get brain damage. Like, no, it really does brain damage. And so I'm like, oh, my little brain, like, no, we can't take any more of this. Like I was already seeing the signs physically with the abuse, with the eczema flare-ups and the insomnia and the anxiety at an all-time high. But when I started getting into the science, that's where it really helped to help me reconcile what I was going through. And it made me eager to want to leave, you know, even though I may have not gotten out when I first knew about this, but it still put a fire under my ass. Like, okay, Gina, you've got to plan your escape route. You've got to leave. You've got to make this a permanent thing.
You weren't ready until you were ready, but when you were ready, you did it.
I did. I did.
Yeah. So what's helped you stay strong when you have felt pulled back into that bond?
Oh, my support system. Like, that's the part that makes me emotional, because I know there are probably a lot of people out there that don't have the support system that I have. Like, I am so blessed with such amazing friends, and my mom, and like just the people that
Your son.
my son, like the people that love me and see me for me. I realize what a gift that is. So I could not have done this without my support system. Like, that has been a huge blessing for me in getting through this and healing from it. And also, you know, having to learn to rewire my brain. We talk about this so much in our episodes, not centered around this, but lots of things. But it applies to this as well. Finding my dopamine hit in other ways, right? Like exercising, appreciating my peace now. Oh, the peace that I feel now. Even though I'm single, and even though I'm alone and don't have a partner, my life is so full in so many ways. Having that gratitude and looking for those connections, not just with a male partner, an intimate partner, but with my son, with my best friend, with my boss, with my mom. Like, nurturing those connections now has turned into such a healing thing for me. That is what's kept me centered. And honestly, protecting my peace. Now my peace is at such a high level, and I don't want anybody to fuck with that again. It's so important to me now. And so the people I choose to surround myself with, I only want to feel at ease. I only want to feel seen. I only want to forge those deep connections. And I've learned so much through this experience, even though it's been so painful. Just the lessons.
It was your crucible.
It was.
We've talked about on the show, and this is a big nut cruncher, this particular experience that you had, and so it's kind of hard to wrap your brain around this, but we've talked about
It was like a double nut cruncher.
Nothing happens to you, everything happens for you.
Correct.
And like you said, you dealt with low self-esteem and the lack of self-worth from teenagerhood. In addition to everything that you just mentioned, what I have also seen within you is beginning to self-source your self-respect, your own sense of self-worth, so that you're not looking for your dopamine hits outside of yourself. You're not looking for the other people around you to validate you.
Right.
I'm seeing you step into greater self-worth than you've ever had before. I mean, maybe you could have gotten to that from some other method or modality, but this was sort of like the fast track.
It was.
It put you in a position to make a choice. You can either spiral and tailspin for the rest of your life, or you can say, it ends here. It ends now.
And I think, again, the lesson for me, and I think it was meant to happen for me, because those traumas and those triggers from years ago of my sexual assault, they weren't completely healed. And so this made me face those parts of me that were still longing for care.
He couldn't have triggered them any better.
Right. Oh,
even that last moment, even the
damage,
calling you damage, was the most precise, most perfect trigger you could have ever asked for to finally spot that gaping wound that was still there that you had tiptoed around for your entire adult life. You know, we can have gratitude, and we talked about this. Is you don't pick him up and play with him anymore because he's a snake.
Right. Right.
But you can have gratitude for this person's role in your healing journey and how they provided you the perfect opportunity to finally heal from the wounds you've been carrying around for freaking 30 years.
And you know what feels good? I never thought I was going to be able to say that, but it was a beautiful lesson.
Yeah.
I really.
And here you are.
Because it was so painful.
Yeah.
But, you know, leveling up in your life, it's not all peaches and cherries and rose bushes. Like it's painful sometimes to level up and to heal those traumatic events in your life. So
after sharing what narcissistic abuse looks like and how deeply it impacts the mind and body, let's talk about two really important pieces for our listeners, right? How healing actually begins and how to spot the red flags before you get pulled into that cycle again. Regarding healing and recovery, as Gina mentioned, no contact rule.
Nope.
Especially important if children are involved. Especially important. Rebuilding self-trust, journaling, therapy, support groups, accountability partners, whatever it is that you need to do, that is a piece that needs to get worked on, is rebuilding self-trust. Nervous system healing, recognizing your trauma responses, learning, educating yourself about fight, flight, freeze, fawn, all of that. Reframing. Survivors often rediscover their strength, empathy, and intuition once they're free. And doing what Gina and I just did in this conversation, we're reframing the experience to recognize the opportunity that it was and as profound stimulus for personal growth.
Absolutely. 150%. 150%.
So red flags, over the top charm too quickly, saying I love you on your way out the door a few months after meeting somebody. And
No,
you're
a
just
month. Like a month.
Oh God.
Not even a few. Yeah.
Future faking, love bombing, all that stuff. Lack of empathy or accountability. Inconsistent words versus actions. Big red flag.
Big one.
Gaslighting, phrases like you're too sensitive or that never happened or you're crazy or you make a bid for connection and it gets turned around and thrown in your face like you're the problem.
Experience that a lot.
Cultural myth-busting data points. Narcissistic abuse isn't only romantic. It can happen with parents, bosses, friends, or even spiritual leaders. And survivors aren't weak. They were systematically conditioned to doubt themselves. That is such an important thing for people to wrap their brain around, especially if you're a victim of it.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I want to say, I do want to talk about the survivor mentality because, and I know we've talked about it in another episode, but one thing that helped me too in my sexual abuse, and this was with working heavily with a therapist and doing EMDR and doing all the things to try to heal and help myself. But when I finally was able to look at myself as a survivor and not a victim, in this case as well, it completely shifted things for me. It shifted my perspective. It shifted how I thought about myself. It didn't make me feel weak anymore. It actually gave me strength that somebody, and I don't know why I never had that mentality until my therapist said, you're not a victim. You actually survived this really traumatic, I mean, you could have died that night. He could have killed you. He could have strangled you. He could have, and yes, I had some bruises and I was bumped up and, you know, but I was alive. When somebody reframed that for me, I think those feelings of weakness started to leave me because I started to see myself as a survivor. And the brainwashing in a narcissistic abusive relationship can make you feel very weak. It can make you feel like not yourself. I think being able to turn everything around and having that different shift in my mentality of being a survivor, not a victim, really helped my healing process through that and really helped me get to the other side to where I am now.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
You know, it's talking about having a track record of survival. This is something I've talked about with people in my life before who are going through really, really difficult phases of life. And they're like, I don't know how I'm going to get through this. Whatever it is. It could be relationships or financial issues or job issues or whatever. And the thing that I like to tell people is you have a 100% success rate for surviving everything that has ever come at you.
That's good.
That's an excellent track record.
That's an
What
excellent-
makes you think you're going to break your streak now? You're how old and you've survived literally everything that's ever come at you?
Think you're going to keep doing it.
I think you can do it.
Mm-hmm.
I think you can do it. So Gina, if you could go back and speak to yourself in the middle of the relationship, what would you say?
I think the biggest thing is don't give up. Don't give up. Don't stop trying to get out. You're stronger than you think you are.
Mm-hmm.
You're stronger than you think you are. And
Yeah.
when I didn't have anything left, and when I was stripped of who I was, there was still just that nagging little thought in the back of my head, which to me, I mean, partly me feels like it was my dad just always whispering to me, you're stronger than you think you are. You can do this. And so that's what I would say to that lost woman.
I said it to you 1,000 times. You heard me eventually.
Eventually. It was on my own timing.
It had to be you. It had to come from it had to come from you.
It did.
Yeah.
No other way.
Yep. You couldn't hear it till you could hear it.
Mm-mm.
What wisdom do you want to pass on to our listeners who may be currently in a narcissistic or trauma bonded relationship right now?
I want people to know that you can and you will come out on the other side of this experience. You will. There is so much hope and beauty on the horizon for you to experience, and this is not it. This is not the end game for you. And always keep in your mind that you deserve more. You deserve more than what this person is doing to you. You deserve more than what this person is saying to you, how they're making you feel. I would say keep fighting. Keep fighting for your dreams. Keep fighting for your life. You're worth it. You are worth it. And if you keep saying it enough times, you start to believe it.
Mm-hmm.
You start to believe it. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being willing to have this conversation and be vulnerable. This took a lot for you to get to this point, and you deserve recognition for the hole you dug yourself out of with your own bare claws. Just
And I want to say, I'm so proud that I didn't cry more.
me too.
I really thought I was going to be like a puddle. And
Yeah.
that is a testament to how far I've come. I
Yes.
feel like, right?
And it means you were right when you finally said, I'm ready to talk about it. I was like, damn, girl, let's do this.
Yeah, because I thought,
I'm ready.
Are we going to have to pause it? Because like I'm sniffling and I'm like, you know,
You got snot running down your face. And...
So I just want to say to you, thank you for giving me a safe space.
Yeah.
And allowing me to tell my story. And I think people need to hear it. And I think if one person is listening and they're going through it right now, that this could help. This could help in some small way.
You are not alone, friends.
No, you're not.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening. It has been an honor to have you here. If you enjoyed this conversation and this episode, please do us a favor. And right now, just go down and hit that little button. Whatever platform you're on, it's different on every platform, whether it's like or follow or subscribe. Share with your friends. You know someone who has dealt with this before. Please share this episode with them if you think it would be helpful for them at all.
Yeah.
And sharing and liking and subscribing and all that, that's the very best way to help us grow our platform so that we can reach out to more people.
Thank you so much for tuning in and listening. We
I
appreciate
hope you'll visit us on the next one.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.